Welcome to the Clear Defense Training Program. This is not mixed martial arts, MMA, or anything like that. This is a self-defense program. I've been attacked over 15 times in the street, and being attacked for real is not anything like a wrestling match or any other kind of tournament that you've ever probably seen. The first time I was seriously attacked, I was between the ages of 10 and 12, and it was two guys in their late teens, and one of them basically produced a knife and held it to my face. And fortunately for me, it was a robbery. I had school candy that I was selling and money, and I gave them the stuff, and off they went. And that was the smartest thing for me to do, because anything else I would have done would probably ended up with them grabbing me and stabbing me a lot. Real attacks are brutal and surprisingly sudden. They're not a fair fight. They're not toe-to-toe. People think, okay, so I've got these skills and I can do whatever I'm going to do there. Most of the time in a real attack, it's not fair or an exchange like that. That's not what criminals look for. They look for the ability to overwhelmingly win against you. And so there are going to be some key skills that I'm going to teach you that A, are designed to not get you in the situation, and B, if you end up in the situation anyways, that you're slightly ahead mentally of that curve so that you're taking the proper kinds of responses. By the way, for a robbery, still the better advice is most of the time give them the stuff, especially if the robbery is at gunpoint and you're over there. Even if you have a gun on you, if you try to draw it, you're going to find that typically you can't. And so there are intelligent responses to things that you want to learn. Anybody trying to go for the gun when somebody's already pointed a gun on them is probably shot. And even if they manage not to get shot, there are bullets flying at them that did not have to happen. It's easier to replace the stuff. And so this is part of the difference between looking at a real situation and looking at like a tournament or MMA type event. I'm there to win money, and I'm supposed to fight the other guy to win money. You try that in a real situation against a serious attacker, it will probably go badly just because your ego got in the way of smart self-defense. All right. One of the questions that I'll ask you here that has just to illustrate the point, can you exchange hits with someone who is twice your size or has a knife? And by exchange, I mean, so you hit them and they stab you, and you hit them and they stab you. And the obvious answer is no. The criminal knows this, and they use it to their extreme advantage. Criminals attack those that are obviously weaker, smaller, or at some disadvantage. Very rarely does a real criminal attack someone, or somebody of a psychopathic mindset attack someone that they obviously has great ability to do more harm to them than they can do to that person. Now, it does happen on rare occasion, but most of the time not. The program that you're about to see has been developed over the course of more than 25 years, and the origination of the course was that a doctor walked into my school and said that he needed to learn how to protect himself, and he had like a weekend to do it and no more time than that, and could I impart those skills to him in a weekend? And what I did was look at curriculum that I had first, but then went to experiences that I had actual attacks, and built the program off of the attacks that I had experienced, and then kind of filled in what needed to happen to deal with those attacks, or things that I did to deal with those attacks, and then put the science of the program of information behind it, so that people could get why what I was showing them worked and how to apply it in a wide variety of situations, more than just each specific situation. So just to give you an idea of the kinds of attacks that I experienced that the program is built off of, I've been held at gunpoint at fairly close range twice, been involved in situations where there was a gun involved more than that. Several times, probably half a dozen times, where a knife was pulled, the knife was out, and the person was actively engaged in trying to use it or threatening with it. Multiple attackers on a good number of occasions, including a car screeching to a halt and a pile of people just coming out of the car and attacking. I grew up in the inner city, what is today one of the top 10 worst crime cities in the United States, and probably was at the time as well. And I made a decision, and that decision was that I would fight to the death if necessary, rather than let a criminal take my life. Before moving from there, I was 24 years old, and I was attacked the last 6 months that I lived there 3 times on the street. And some of that was racially motivated. I lived in neighborhoods of a different ethnic makeup than I am. Some of that was economic, where they would have gone after anybody that looked like they had $5. Some of that was circumstances. One of the multiple attacker situation, I was with 5 other guys, and we were attacked by 15 guys, and it was mostly because one of the guys that I was with and one of the guys who was with the other 15 guys were in an argument about a mutual girlfriend, and it turned into a situation that got uglier by the minute. Anyways, so to give you an idea of the amount of reality that goes into the courses, most of the time if somebody has a question on something along the lines of what happens if kind of a thing, I've actually experienced that, and so I tend to draw on that experience for the answer, just in terms of what you can do and what you can't do. And a lot of times it's as simple as understanding that to know what you need to do that's going to be smart in a given situation. I've been involved in martial arts for over 36 years now, coming up on 40 years. I've studied in depth from over 50 master instructors. The arts that I've studied have been for self-defense primarily. Now, with that, I've done a few things for health and for spiritual development and that kind of thing, but the overwhelming beginning and the mainstay that's been the case all along has been arts that really had self-defense at their core. My approach to them is a direct reflection of my early experiences of being attacked. These arts are primarily based on tribal warfare and military elite special forces survival. There aren't any sport applications to this. They are based on multiple attackers who are armed with bladed weapons and surprise attacks. Well, it's not, okay, there's 2 people here to get ready and there's a judge and all that. It's you were doing whatever you were doing, and as you look around, you realize, here comes somebody, or if you're paying attention, maybe you see them earlier than that. But the fact that you were going to be attacked at that moment in time wasn't something you knew about a week or a month or 2 months in advance and got yourself all psyched up for. It was, you were getting out of your car, going to the movies one night, and here comes some guys. So your notice was about that much. Okay, what I mean is the notification that you have. So Silat is one of our top primary arts. It is from a tribal blade-oriented culture where every man, woman, and child had to be able to defend themselves because they were all under attack from an enemy tribe who did not announce themselves prior to attacking. Belladiri is what we call this, and Belladiri is the kind of art that everyone in the village could use, that everyone could train and learn very, very quickly, that within a day to 3 days, you can actually learn to use it for self-defense. And then in the village, this would be drilled in from as soon as they could walk, basically. And the movements of the art itself are, generally speaking, simple, reasonably simple, and yet comprehensive, head to toe. And then by drilling this, even just 5 minutes here, a couple, 3, 4 minutes here, the next day, so that maybe they're only getting a few minutes a week on it, but it's designed to be that it's everything they have is being in their body, mind, all their body parts are applied to it. And because of that, by the time they hit 10 years old already, they've got a full functioning martial art that is ingrained into their body and mind. Both of my children were taught the basics of the full body aspects of this method and could do it by the time they were 2.5 years old. Now, if they were attacked, would they use it today? Probably not, mostly because I haven't explained to them what it's for and how it's applied. As soon as they hit an age where I feel like they're responsible enough that I don't have to worry about them hurting somebody else with it, I'll take about 5 minutes and explain to them what I've had them doing most of their life. Not all the time. In fact, I only drill it with them maybe once every 6 months to every couple of years. And then I kind of help them beef back up, which doesn't take long, half an hour, and then I leave it alone again. And then so that when they actually learn how it's applied and what it's for and what to do with it, they'll fully own the skill right out of the box. They already have it completely ingrained. And it's just a matter of understanding the situational application of it. That's the part that I've left out. That like I say, about a 5-minute explanation once they hit old enough, somewhere between 14, 16, 17, and then they'll have it for the rest of their lives able to apply. The program psychology of this is all or nothing. Never trade hits with an attacker. You don't want to hit them or have them hit you, but if somebody's going to get hit, you want to make sure that they're the one getting hit and you're not getting hit at all. So the program that we've got is designed to do exactly that, to make it so that they get all the beating and that you don't take any. Now, that doesn't mean they're not trying to bring some, but that your answers for what they're trying to do are comprehensively covering for whatever it is that they're trying to do. The first thing we always say, and I want to tell you now, is avoid the situation if possible. Avoid it. Even if you know going in, I can win this. That's not a good legal, moral reason to go, okay, let's go ahead and push my weight around and see what I can get away with. The goal is to avoid situations if it is possible to do so, and obviously the more severe and extreme it is, the more it's dependent that you do that every time you can. It's easy, people find this out when they get into road rage more often than you would think, where they pull over and the other person pulls over and the other person pulls out their gun. Everything seemed like they were in pretty good shape until the other person did that. So we avoid it. So I don't get, if somebody's doing road rage, I just don't respond to that. Or my response is I try to pull somewhere like in front of the police station and let them pull up and do that in front of a whole bunch of other cops. So when they pull the gun out, I just stay low. The police will handle the situation. Because they're not going to let somebody run around out in a parking lot with a gun in their hand, right? And I call 911 on my cell phone while I'm on my way to the police station, by the way. Okay, gotta wait, they're ready when we get there. Only have to do that once, the other person immediately, off they go. They don't want to do that. We also want to back it if we are in a closer situation and it's, person to person, we want the other person to back off if we cannot. In other words, first I want to get away. If I can't get away, I want the other person to decide that it's a bad idea to come after me. So how do we back them off? And when I say back them off, it's not like I'm making them back off. I just make them decide that really it's not worth it. And so there's some really good ways to do that. The program that we've got is designed to do that, to avoid first, then to put up a deterrence of, I don't want this, and kind of a thing. And then if they're going to keep coming, to respond in a way so that most people will not just keep coming at you. They'll actually back off. Now, I've used this program more than 15 times in real situations, and in all but 4 of the times, the person actually did back off and never laid a physical hand or foot on me. They did not touch me. Out of the people that I've taught it to that have had to use it, I've had more than 100 people who had to use the program in some form. A dozen of those use the program the way that it's taught. In other words, the person actually physically got to them, and it knocked out the attacker on the first contact, except for 2 cases, and in one of those it broke the attacker's arm on the first contact, and on the other one the person actually was a brawling, burly guy, and he tried to fist fight first, started losing the fist fight badly. It clicked in his head that he better do something different, what he was taught. He started doing the program, and immediately, as soon as he started doing the program, knocked out the attacker. The other, when I said over 100 people had used it, basically everybody else that's used the program, they were able to deter the attacker. The attacker wanted to get at him, and after somewhere between a few seconds and 10 minutes of trying to get in there, the attacker decided it was a bad idea, that they didn't think they could get close enough to the person doing this program, and they backed off. And the situation ended without them ever touching the person who was using this program. The part of the program psychology here is, if you can get away, get away. If you can't get away, deter them or get them so that there's no contact. If there's going to be contact, drop them where they stand with a complete overwhelming attack of at least 3 hits per second with full body strength and power in the situation as fast as possible. This program is designed for your personal safety, security, and life, not for sportsmanship, not for ego, nothing else. It's, I'm going to survive this situation. The way the program is taught so that you can really use it is that we're going to do it in individual pieces, and then we're going to integrate all those pieces, and we'll actually do it where you learn the first piece and you do that, and then you learn the second piece and you integrate the first and second piece, so now you're only doing one thing. And then you learn the third piece and you integrate the third piece with the first and second pieces, so you're only doing one thing. And then you learn the fourth piece, integrate it with the first 3, and now you're only doing one thing. And when you're done, you've actually learned about 18 to 20 different principles and concepts and aspects of how to use your body, and it's all happening at the same time. The importance of that, as much or more than anything else, is that when you get in a situation, if you have multiple options, more than 3, it starts to become a problem. More than 5, most people will freeze instead of using one of those options because it's too many possible choices. Ideally, you're working off of one sort of script, that script goes the same way every single time. In other words, the way that you're applying yourself, your mind, your body, the physical part of the approach, the emotional part of the approach, ideally it would be very, very, very similar or the same every time, and it would be comprehensive, using everything. And so that when you think about it, you don't think about 20 pieces, you think about one thing, and you do that one thing. Now there are steps to that one thing, and that has to do with the time and the place. If the person is way off in the distance, you're obviously not responding to them like they're an immediate threat that's fairly up close. If they're really up close, you're not going to respond to them like they're somebody that's, 1,000 feet away from you that just gave you a casual glance. And so there is a timing aspect there, but the timing is always going to be the same based on relative distance, and it's a continuum that is one continuum. So again, it'll feel to you, if you train it properly, and I'm going to show you exactly how to train it properly, like one thing. And that one thing then becomes very easy to do whenever you need to do it, as opposed to, like I said, not having to try to figure out, well, should I do this or should I do that? You want those answers in a situation to be very simple, so that the first thing that pops in your head, based on training, is the right thing, and that you do that right thing every time. That's what will keep you safe in a really bad situation. Okay, so the topic of this section is awareness. Most victims of violent crime report that the attacker came out of nowhere, like they beamed in from the Enterprise or something. Now, is that the reality of it, that there wasn't an attacker there, and then they beamed in from the starship and there's an attacker, and the answer is no. But for the person who wasn't paying attention, it feels like that. They were doing my business, there comes the attack. All right. Good self-defense does not require being freaked out or being hyper, and what's going on, where is everything, and this kind of thing. That'll make you lose your mind, and you can't defend yourself doing that very well anyways. Right? So it's not hyper craziness or freaked out. It does require being present where you are when you're there. Being present. Simply be aware of your surroundings. When I say that, the same way that I basically just scanned the entire room and talked to you and talked to him and talked to him and looked down there at the stuff on the floor, or looked at the front door, or if I'm out walking, that I'm just kind of taking in all the scenery, that is present enough because you're paying attention and you're not somewhere else mentally. You're not somewhere else, right? Where is your mind most of the time when you're doing things? These days, people are so busy and have so many things going on that they're thinking about, who they talked to this morning, who they've got to talk to this afternoon, that email they've got to get back to, the email they need to send, the grocery list, what they've got, the 5 items they've got to stop and pick up, the 3 errands they've got to run, where they've got to go to do that, and they're mentally doing this and ignoring what's happening around them. The person walked out of the mall, talking to her friend on the phone, and she said, I don't remember where I put my phone. I'm gonna have to, I can't find my phone. And her friend says, hang up, and when you find your phone, call me back. Thinking about things like what you're gonna do or say later, or a conversation you had, or that you're going to have, or the laundry list of things is going to put your mind somewhere else. Ideally, you want to be present whenever in public, you want to be present right there where you are right now. And that means that if I look around, even just that kind of a scan, that I can give you let's say you're in a lot of people, you can go, well, there's a lot of people. Let's say that there's 2 people over there, a person down there, and a person over there. As fast as I just said it, ideally, I ought to be able to kind of see that without it being freaked out. It's just this, a normal, casual, the way I'm kind of looking and talking to you now and looking at different aspects of the camera and looking at one of the guys here, that kind of an ease of look, but you have to be really mentally present to do it without it being stressful or that kind of thing. Now, when you first go to do this, for a lot of people, if they're used to kind of being off in la la land and on the phone and everything else while they're doing things, it's a little uncomfortable. They're not used to it. And so they're like, oh man, I've got to be present right here, now I'm bored. This kind of thing, or I'm stressed because I want to be thinking about these other things. When you're in your cars driving, is a good time to be thinking about all that other stuff. Well, sort of. Actually, a lot of times people get used to driving like that, and they actually do okay. The difference there being that then if somebody does a sudden stop, well, maybe they plow into the back of them or that kind of thing. But most people in the car today do that. Now, what's the #1 cause of accidents? Distracted driving. Anyway, so the reason this distractedness, this not being present where you are, is the reason that most people report they did not see the attacker until it was too late, and that the attacker came out of nowhere. Being present versus not being present really makes that difference in terms of what you're ready for, what you see, what you know is going on, and what you don't. What a good attacker or criminal does is they plan their attack. People think that a criminal one day wakes up and goes, gee, I need some money, and they go out and hit the streets looking for the first person that they come to, and if they come to the first person and they attack that person wherever they're at, or go to rob the person. Can that happen? Yeah, it can. What happens most often is that the criminal knows that if they do that, they're probably going to really get caught. Get seen by too many people, all these things. So what they do is they go and pick a location. They might make, a lot of times they pick this location a week, 2 weeks, or more in advance. And they go to the location and they try to make it somewhere that's somewhat isolated, so that way they know that there's going to be less people who are going to see them and who are going to possibly interfere with what they want to do, and that they're more likely to catch someone by themselves. So when I say isolated, they'll pick an ATM, for example, that is outside, that has good positioning, so that they'll be able to get good position for what they want to do, and that if they go there after dark, late enough in the evening, that although they might go an hour before somebody shows up, sooner or later somebody will drive up to that ATM. And they wait. Person pulls up, then they attack. Person pulled up, they made the first mistake of going, in that case, of going to this ATM in the middle of the night, out in the middle of wherever they're doing this at, where it's in a really vulnerable position. The second mistake that they made was when going, they probably didn't survey the surroundings enough, or a lot of times, not a lot of times, but enough of the time, they, in retrospect, will go, you know, I did kind of see them, and they just blew it off. Or they play it back in their head and they were on the phone or whatever else they were doing, and they go, you know, I thought about it, yeah, I did sort of see that somebody was there, but it was kind of vague. It was vague because they weren't paying enough attention. First mistake was going somewhere where there was where the possibility of being a victim was a lot higher. Second mistake was then going there not being fully aware and paying full attention and surveying the situation before putting themselves into it. And the key element there being use, number one, avoidance, and still use awareness, and so ideally both. And if we're going to not use avoidance, going to the ATM and late at night, at least awareness in a big way ought to be, and surveying the landscape ought to be going on. Okay, so for present mind practice, what I've got is be present here and now. And a drill you can use is constantly tell yourself, and this is to help you to overcome the problem of, okay, I'm paying attention to what's going on around me and it's driving me nuts because I'd rather be on my phone or thinking about these other things. Constantly tell yourself what and how many or how much is around you and what you're looking at. And an example of this, if you've ever been where you were thinking about getting a new car and you weren't sure what kind you're getting, you started to kind of settle in on the car. You might go, you know, I think I like, name a car, a red Ferrari. The next thing you start doing when you're driving down the road and you're looking and you want to see how they look driving down the road, how they drive and all that, you start seeing all the red Ferraris. Before that, you might only have noticed one if it really stood out somehow. And maybe the red Ferrari you'd see every time, but let's say you decided you wanted to try a Volkswagen Beetle. Well, they're out on the road all the time, but only in extreme, you know, if there's something very outstanding about it, you normally notice it. But if you're thinking about getting one, next thing you know, oh, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, and you really start seeing them. They were there all the time. You didn't notice them before because you weren't looking. Anyway, so you can, how many people do you see is one of the more common ones that I use. How far away about are they? Are they 10 to 20 feet? Are they 50 feet, 100 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet? And it's just, and literally I'm clicking it off like, okay, one person, car, nobody out on the street, across the street, and just boom, 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 kind of quick like that. But it's a continual process. If I'm out, if I've already done that and I'm paying attention to that, then I start looking at how many flowers can I see? At the moment, none. How many cars can I see? You know, and kind of get, and I don't mean I start actually kind of counting the cars if you're in thick traffic. This wouldn't be so good. How many red cars do I see? How many blue cars do I see? And I don't want to stick to one because otherwise you get fixated on red cars, red cars, red cars, and then you start to ignore everything else. I want to change it up enough so that I'm being aware of what's around me, or start going through the list, the laundry list of what you see around me. So if I'm in traffic, you know, how many people do I see on foot? How many people do I see? Do I see any cars that have 4 or more people in it? Do I see any cars how many cars do I see close that I can immediately tell have one person in it? How many cars are, you know, just whatever kind of thing you can ask yourself, or just start calling off what you see in your head, and then paying attention to what it is you're saying to yourself when you're doing that. It's a tool. You'd only use it for a little bit, and then eventually you want to kind of leave that go, and it's just you're looking at whatever is there. All right. Okay, the next step here is avoidance. Now there's the first avoidance, which is you avoid bad situations, going to places like the ATM after, you know, late at night, outside, that kind of stuff. So there's the kind of avoidance where you stay away from situations that are likely to be where bad things can and probably will, if not right now, at some point sooner than later, happen. Right? So you just avoid bad situations or potentially bad situations. The next one is awareness, and then along with that awareness is another level of avoidance, which is I see a situation starting to develop, or I'm looking down the street and I'm headed towards a crowd of guys that are looking like they're angry. I don't keep walking that way. The awareness that I see that is my next one is avoidance, which is, and it's not like I grab their attention and then off I go. It's, oh, it doesn't look good, and off I go. I'm not going to go that way, and even if I have to go around the block or something, that's fine. And I include things in this, like I've gone to the sports bar that serves, you know, the Bennigan's type place, or the Fridays or this kind of a thing, where they've got a bar and they serve alcohol and all that, but they've also got dinner seating, and so they serve full menu. And you just, you know, on a Friday night, and there's a lot of people in there, and there are people specifically there for the drinking part of it, and they're starting to get kind of drunk, and they're angry, and there's several of them, and it's beginning to look like things can get ugly. I just leave. I don't stay and go, well, gee, is this going to develop into something bad or not? You know, it's, I avoid those places like that in the first place. In other words, if I walk in and I'm already seeing that, I don't stay, I go somewhere else. If I'm in there and I'm starting to get a bad element like that somehow, then I'll leave also. I won't, again, I just won't stay for it. That's the avoidance, using the awareness and then avoiding. Get moving away from a bad situation as fast as you can. And when I say fast, I don't mean break your neck getting away. I mean, it's just, here we go. And I'm out and off. Shots fired, if you actually hear gunfire, the normal response most people in the situation is, they look. If I hear gunfire, and I've been in more than a few places where I've heard this, I do this and I leave. I'll hear about it if it's something serious, I'll hear about it on the news later. I don't need to get up firsthand and go, uh-oh, I shouldn't have been looking at that, because now they're shooting at me. It's, get away from it. Make smart decisions and use smart planning. Do not go into a bad situation due to anger or ego, that kind of thing. And an example would be somebody has broken into your house and they're stealing your stuff. You think, and there's a good chance they're armed. I mean, they did break into your house and they're taking your stuff, and they've got a family heirloom. And let's say the person's somebody you know, and they broke in and they had a family heirloom and they were particularly taking it. Well, I call the police, but I don't go in there and you go, well, you know what, I can take them. You go into the situation to fight them. Now that becomes possibly a life or death struggle for at least one of you. I just avoid it. I'll get the heirloom back one way or the other. You know, either through the police coming or through lawsuit if you know where they live and their job and those kind of things. I mean, you can make it difficult for them without having to physically engage with them in a way that becomes dangerous. And so I just avoid that kind of confrontation if possible. And I say this to you as a person that's been doing martial arts for nearly 40 years. I still avoid situations like that. Why? Because I can go in there and jump on them and do things to them and smack their head off of something and they hit the floor and all that. I'm going to get sued for everything I own. And that's only if I don't go to jail for a while, most of the time. Now, if I do everything I can to avoid it, then they come hunt me down, and then they reach a point where they're up on me and it's serious, and then I hurt them. I will be able to talk about what I did to try to avoid that situation, which, you know, the legal system's not perfect, but if you went out of your way to engage, you're going to have a hard time getting out of that. And my goal is that if I've had conversations with other martial artists about this kind of thing, where they're like, no, if somebody's doing this or that, I'm really going to go after them. And I'm like, well, right now that's ego talking. Because yes, you can win the physical confrontation. Jail for 5 years is not winning in my book. Now, if it's jail or death on the spot, yeah, I'm going to choose the lesser of the two evils, and I'm going to go to jail for a while if I had to. And I would try not to. But if I can avoid the first part, and it's not death or jail, it's be smart or jail, I'm going to be smart about it. Okay, so the section we're going to work on now, or talk about now, is deterrence. I avoid the situation if I can. I want to be aware about what's going on around me, and if I see anything that's starting to look bad, or it might be bad, or whatever, I avoid that. And so it's avoidance, awareness, more avoidance. If at that point I end up in a situation anyways, or a situation is brought to me where I can't get away, again, still using the awareness skills, and trying to get away, just realize that it's not going to happen. Then I want to deter the other person. Now, one of the things that happens in circumstances is, in real situations, quite often, is that in the average day of being out on the street, driving somewhere, walking somewhere, going in and out of a convenience store, a number of other kinds of just everyday situations. Most people are used to someone else asking them for things like, "Loan me $1, can I have $1? Or what time is it? Or do you have can you help me with some directions?" And they end up being somewhat close interaction with another person that you don't know. Criminals know this and they use it so that they will approach you very commonly the same way and ask you for the time or for $1 or for directions, so that, and they particularly want you to be doing something like this while they're going to hit you, or this, or well, it's over there while they're hitting you in the back of the head, right? Whatever it is. So when someone is trying to ask you something, what you want to do is communicate in a way that makes the other party announce their real intentions. Basically, it's how to communicate so that if they're an attacker, they will end up telling you that they're an attacker before you get into a position that's dangerous like that, and while watching them and your surroundings. Just to be clear, I want the attacker, if they're an attacker, to tell me that they're an attacker. By the way, my bachelor's degree is in communications, and I've used the information from that degree to help create this program. My first step in deterrence is that I want to communicate with my eyes, with my voice, with my hands, and with everything I have, and have all of that stuff ready and engaged, so if I have to fight with it, that's also all